"Do not follow the sound of that song," the elders warned, "because the wolf listening beneath the moon may never let you go." But Emily Carter had always believed that a wounded heart deserved kindness, even when the entire world told her to walk away. The Silverpine Pack had forgotten her name long ago. To them, she was only the rejected Omega, the quiet girl who lived at the edge of the territory and carried no powerful family name, no warrior reputation, and no place among those who measured worth by strength alone. Every morning, Emily walked through the village with her head lowered, hearing the whispers that followed behind her. She had learned not to answer them. She had learned that proving people wrong was exhausting, but staying true to herself was something she could control. Her only comfort was the old melody her mother had taught her when she was a child. A simple song that carried warmth, peace, and memories of a time when she had never felt forgotten. That night, beneath a silver moon that covered the forest in pale light, Emily followed the sound of a soft cry coming from beyond the familiar trails. The deeper she walked, the quieter the world became. The tall pine trees stood like silent guardians, and the cold night air brushed against her face. Most people in the pack avoided this part of the forest. They believed anything hidden there was dangerous. But Emily felt something different. She felt loneliness. At the edge of a small clearing, she found him. A massive black wolf rested near the roots of an ancient tree, his dark fur blending with the shadows around him. His breathing was slow, and his bright silver eyes watched her carefully. Any other person would have turned away. Emily saw something else. She saw a creature that had been carrying pain alone. "You are not as frightening as everyone says," she whispered softly. The wolf remained still as she slowly approached. Emily sat a few feet away, giving him space, allowing him to decide whether he trusted her. Then she began to sing. The melody was gentle, almost carried away by the wind. It was not a song of power. It was a song of comfort. Slowly, the tension in the wolf's eyes faded. For the first time in what felt like years, the world around him became quiet. Emily did not know that the creature before her was not an ordinary wolf. She did not know that the silver eyes watching her belonged to Adrian Blackwood, the Alpha King whose name commanded respect across the Northern Territories. She did not know that the most powerful figure in the kingdom had fallen into a moment of weakness and had found the one person who saw him without a crown, without a title, and without fear. All Emily knew was that a life needed kindness. So she stayed beneath the moonlight, continuing the song that no one else had dared to sing. And somewhere beyond the trees, destiny quietly began to awaken. The forest had always been a place where Emily Carter felt invisible. But that night, beneath the silver glow of the moon, she realized she was not alone. The mysterious black wolf returned the following evening, waiting quietly at the edge of the clearing where she had found him. Emily stopped when she saw those familiar silver eyes watching her from the shadows. She expected fear. She expected suspicion. Instead, she felt the same quiet sadness she had sensed before. "You came back," she whispered. The wolf lowered his head slightly, almost as if he understood her words. Emily smiled softly and sat beneath the old pine tree, keeping a respectful distance between them. She did not try to control him. She did not demand his trust. She simply offered kindness, the same kindness she had wished someone would offer her. Days passed, and an unusual bond formed between the rejected Omega and the mysterious wolf. Every evening after her duties were finished, Emily returned to the forest with small portions of food and the gentle song her mother had taught her. The village noticed her absence, but no one questioned where she went. They were too busy discussing the arrival of the royal guards and the rumors surrounding the missing Alpha King. Adrian Blackwood, the ruler of the Northern Territories, had disappeared during a secret journey beyond the kingdom borders. The news had spread quickly. Some believed he was searching for answers about an ancient mystery. Others believed he had chosen solitude after years of carrying the weight of the crown. No one knew the truth. No one knew that the legendary Alpha King was resting beneath the trees, listening to the voice of the one person who did not know his name. Emily remained unaware of the secret before her. To her, he was only a lonely creature who needed comfort. She noticed small things about him that made him different from any wolf she had ever seen. His eyes carried intelligence. His presence carried dignity. Even in silence, he seemed like someone who had spent his entire life protecting others. One evening, as Emily finished her song, The wolf moved closer than before. She remained still, allowing him to decide. There was no fear between them, only a quiet understanding. "You remind me of someone," Emily said gently. "Someone who looks strong because everyone expects them to be strong." The wolf looked at her, and for a moment, Emily wondered if he truly understood every word. Far away in the royal territory, the kingdom continued searching for their lost ruler. The strongest warriors followed every trail, but they could not find the answer hidden in the forest. They searched for a king. They never imagined they would find him beside the Omega everyone had ignored. And as Emily continued caring for the mysterious wolf beneath the moonlight, a forgotten power within her began to awaken. A power connected not to dominance or control, but to compassion. Neither of them knew that every gentle song, every moment of trust, and every act of kindness was bringing them closer to a destiny that would change the entire kingdom. The secret of the Black Wolf remained hidden beneath the ancient trees of Silver Pine Forest, but Emily Carter could feel that something about him was changing. Each night when she returned to the clearing, the distance between them became smaller. The wolf no longer watched her with uncertainty. He waited for her, listening for the sound of her footsteps and the gentle melody that had become their quiet connection. Emily never asked why he trusted her. She never wondered what he could offer her. After a lifetime of being judged by what she lacked, she understood the importance of accepting someone exactly as they were. The village had always told Emily that an Omega like her had little value. They believed strength came from power, influence, and the ability to command others. But in the forest, beside the mysterious wolf, Emily discovered a different kind of strength. She discovered that kindness could reach places that force never could. One evening, as the moon rose above the pine trees, Emily noticed something unusual. The wolf looked toward the distant mountains, his expression filled with memories she could not understand. There was sadness in those silver eyes, but also a sense of responsibility. "You miss something, do you not?" Emily asked softly. "Someone, perhaps?" The wolf remained silent, but his eyes answered for him. Emily placed her hand over her heart and began to sing. The melody was the same one her mother had taught her years ago, but tonight something different happened. The air around them seemed warmer. The leaves moved gently even though there was no wind. The wolf closed his eyes, allowing the sound to surround him. Far away, the royal guards continued their search for the missing Alpha King. They traveled through forests, valleys, and mountain paths, following every possible clue. But the truth remained hidden because the person they were searching for was not standing on a throne. He was sitting beneath a tree, listening to the voice of an Omega who had never cared about his power. Adrian Blackwood had spent years surrounded by people who wanted his protection, his influence, and his approval. Everyone saw the crown. Everyone saw the title. Almost no one saw the person carrying the weight behind it. But Emily saw something different. She saw loneliness. She saw someone who needed understanding. And that was something Adrian had never expected to find. As the nights passed, Emily began noticing the strange connection between them. When she felt sadness, the wolf seemed to sense it. When she felt afraid, his presence brought her calm. It was as if their hearts understood each other before their minds could explain why. What Emily did not know was that her voice carried an ancient gift, forgotten by many generations. A gift that could soothe the deepest wounds of the soul. A gift that had once belonged to the rarest Omegas in history. And what Adrian did not know was that the woman sitting beside him beneath the moonlight would become the one person capable of changing not only his heart, but the future of an entire kingdom. The rejected Omega believed she was simply helping a lost wolf. She never imagined she was awakening a destiny that had been waiting for her all along. The days beneath the moonlight slowly changed the way Emily Carter saw the world around her. For the first time in years, she no longer felt completely alone. The quiet moments she shared with the Black Wolf became something precious, a small corner of peace away from the judgment of the Silver Pine Pack. But while Emily believed she was helping a lost creature find comfort, the truth hidden behind those silver eyes was far greater than she could imagine. Adrian Blackwood, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, remembered every moment of those nights. From the moment he had awakened beneath the ancient tree, he had been surrounded by questions. How could someone with so little power make him feel more understood than those who had stood beside his throne for years? He had spent his life being seen as a symbol, a ruler, a protector. Few people ever wondered about the person beneath the title. But Emily did not know his title. She did not know his reputation. She did not know that countless wolves across the kingdom respected and feared his name. To her, he was simply a wounded soul beneath the trees. One evening, Emily arrived at the clearing carrying a small basket of herbs she had gathered from the forest. The wolf watched her carefully as she approached. "You always look like you are carrying the weight of the whole world," Emily whispered. "But even the strongest creatures need a place to rest." Adrian remained still, but her words reached deeper than she realized. No one had spoken to him that way in years. Everyone saw the strength of the Alpha King, but no one saw the exhaustion behind it. Emily sat beside the tree and began humming the familiar melody. This time something within Adrian responded. A strange warmth filled the air around them, and the ancient markings hidden beneath his fur briefly glimmered beneath the moonlight. Emily noticed the change but did not understand what it meant. She only smiled gently. "I think you are not just an ordinary wolf, are you?" The question was soft, without fear or suspicion. Adrian looked at her, surprised by how close she was to discovering the truth. Before he could answer, a distant sound echoed through the forest. Royal search parties were moving closer. The kingdom was still looking for their missing ruler, and time was running out. Adrian knew he could not remain hidden forever. Yet leaving Emily behind felt impossible. She had given him something he thought he had lost forever. Peace. Trust. A moment where he was not a king but simply himself. Emily looked toward the trees, unaware of the secret approaching. "Someone is looking for you," she said quietly. Adrian lowered his gaze, realizing that destiny had brought him to the one person who would never have chosen him because of his crown. She would have chosen him because of his heart. And that was the truth that made her different from everyone else. As the moon reached its highest point, Adrian made a decision. Soon Emily would learn who he truly was. Soon, the world would discover that the forgotten Omega had been the one person who found the Alpha King, when he was no longer surrounded by power. She found him when he was simply a lonely wolf searching for a reason to believe again. The night air felt different beneath the ancient trees of Silver Pine Forest. Emily Carter sensed that something important was about to change, even though she could not explain why. The black wolf stood quietly before her, his silver eyes reflecting the light of the full moon. For many nights, she had wondered about the mystery surrounding him, but she had never imagined the truth waiting beneath the silence. A distant sound moved through the forest. The royal guards were getting closer, searching for the missing ruler of the Northern Territories. Adrian knew the moment he had been avoiding had finally arrived. He could no longer remain hidden from the world, and he could no longer hide the truth from the one person who had shown him kindness without expecting anything in return. Emily noticed the change in his expression. "You are leaving, are you not?" she asked softly. The wolf looked at her, and for a moment, she saw something human in his eyes. Something filled with gratitude and sadness. Before Emily could understand, a soft glow surrounded him beneath the moonlight. The magic that had concealed his true form began to fade, revealing the man who had been hidden all along. Emily stepped back in surprise. Standing before her was not a simple creature of the forest, but a powerful man with a calm presence and an unmistakable air of authority. His dark hair moved gently in the night breeze, and his silver eyes remained the same ones she had trusted from the beginning. "My name is Adrian Blackwood," he said quietly. "I am the Alpha King of the Northern Territories." The forest seemed to become completely silent. Emily stared at him, trying to understand the truth before her. The wolf she had cared for was the ruler that everyone in the kingdom had been searching for. The person she had comforted beneath the trees was the most respected alpha in the entire land. But what surprised Adrian most was not her shock. It was what she said next. "You were alone," Emily whispered. "That was the only thing I saw." Adrian looked at her, unable to hide his surprise. Most people would have focused on his title. They would have bowed, apologized, or feared they had made a mistake. Emily only remembered the lonely wolf who needed someone to stay. In that moment, Adrian understood why fate had brought him to her. She had never been drawn to his power. She had never cared about his crown. She had cared about the soul beneath it. As the royal guards finally reached the clearing, they stopped in disbelief when they saw their king standing beside the Omega they had ignored for years. The news would soon spread throughout the kingdom. The Alpha King had been found, but the greater surprise was the person who had found him. Emily Carter, the forgotten Omega, had saved the one person everyone believed could never fall. And Adrian knew that the connection between them was not an accident. The ancient bond written by destiny had awakened, and the woman who sang to a lost wolf had become the one soul the Alpha King had been searching for all along. The return to Silverpine Pack changed everything Emily Carter had ever known. The same village that once passed by her without a second glance now watched her with confusion and curiosity. The quiet Omega who had lived on the edge of the territory was suddenly standing beside Adrian Blackwood, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. But Emily did not feel like someone who had won a victory. She still felt like the same girl who had sat beneath the trees, singing to a lonely wolf because she could not ignore a creature in need. The royal guards escorted them back toward the kingdom, and every step closer to the palace brought new questions. Whispers followed behind them, not from cruelty this time but from disbelief. How had an unknown Omega been the one to find their missing king? Why had the Alpha King allowed her to stand beside him? Adrian noticed the uncertainty in Emily's eyes. "You are worried about what they will think," he said gently. Emily looked toward the grand halls ahead. "I spent my entire life being judged before anyone knew me. I suppose I am afraid that this time will be different only because they know who you are." Adrian became quiet. Her words reminded him of something he had ignored for years. The world often valued people for their position before seeing their heart. And Emily had done the opposite. She had seen him when he had nothing to offer except his trust. When they entered the royal chamber, the leaders of the Northern Territories gathered to welcome their king home. Many bowed respectfully to Adrian, but their attention quickly moved toward Emily. Some were surprised. Some were uncertain. A few remembered the Omega they had once overlooked. Adrian stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "This woman stood beside me when no one knew my name. She offered kindness when she had no reason to expect anything in return." The room became silent. Emily lowered her gaze, uncomfortable with being the center of attention. She had never wanted recognition. She had only wanted to help. An elder stepped forward and studied her carefully. "You knew who he was not, and still you stayed?" Emily answered honestly. "I did not know he was a king. I only knew he was alone." Those simple words carried more meaning than any grand speech. Adrian looked at her with quiet admiration. The kingdom had spent years searching for someone worthy to stand beside the throne, but they had been looking for power, status, and influence. They never expected to find someone whose greatest strength was compassion. Later that evening, Emily stood near the palace balcony, looking over the lights of the Northern Territories. Everything around her felt unfamiliar, but Adrian's presence beside her brought a sense of peace. "You do not have to become someone else to belong here," he told her. "You already proved that you belong." Emily looked at the kingdom below and realized something had changed. She was no longer the Omega waiting for someone to choose her. She was the person who had chosen kindness when the world chose judgment. And soon the entire kingdom would learn the truth Adrian already knew. The strongest heart was not always the one that commanded the most power. Sometimes it was the one that stayed gentle even after being forgotten. The days after Adrian Blackwood returned to the kingdom were filled with change, but Emily Carter still struggled to believe that any of it was real. The grand halls of the palace, the respectful greetings from the royal guards, and the countless eyes watching her every move all felt like a world that belonged to someone else. She had spent years standing at the edge of the crowd, never expecting anyone to notice her. Now everyone wanted to know the Omega who had found the missing Alpha King beneath the moonlit forest. But Adrian knew the truth. Emily had not changed because the world finally saw her. The world was only beginning to understand what had always been there. One morning, Adrian found Emily walking through the palace gardens, quietly caring for the flowers that had been neglected during his absence. She touched each plant, with patience, giving attention to things others had overlooked. Adrian smiled softly. "Even here, you find something that needs kindness." Emily looked up. Everything deserves someone who cares enough to notice. Those words stayed with him. For years, Adrian had believed leadership meant carrying every burden alone. He had been taught that an Alpha King must always appear strong, always remain distant, and never allow anyone to see uncertainty. But Emily showed him another truth. A leader did not become weaker by showing compassion. A leader became stronger by understanding those who depended on him. However, not everyone in the royal court accepted the changes easily. Some elders questioned whether an Omega without a powerful family background could truly stand beside the throne. They did not insult Emily openly, but their doubts filled the room whenever important decisions were discussed. Emily noticed every uncertain glance. The old feelings returned, reminding her of the days when she believed she would never belong anywhere. Adrian saw the sadness she tried to hide. "You are thinking about leaving," he said quietly. Emily looked away. "I do not want to be the reason people question your position." Adrian stepped closer, his voice calm but certain. "You are not a weakness I must defend. You are the reason I remember why I protect this kingdom." Emily looked at him, surprised by his words. She had spent so long believing she needed to prove her worth that she forgot something important. Worth was not something others could give or take away. It was something she had carried all along. Later that evening, Adrian invited the leaders of the territories to gather in the royal chamber. He did not call them together to demand acceptance. He called them together to share the truth. "I was not found by someone who wanted a crown," he said. "I was found by someone who offered kindness when she had no reason to believe I could ever reward her." The room fell silent. The elders looked toward Emily, seeing not a forgotten Omega, but a woman whose heart had revealed a strength they had failed to recognize. And as the moon rose above the palace, Emily finally understood. That destiny had never been about becoming someone worthy of love. It was about realizing she had always been worthy from the beginning. The kingdom of the Northern Territories slowly began to change, not because of a single announcement or a royal decree, but because people started noticing the small moments that revealed the truth about Emily Carter. The Omega who had once walked through Silverpine Pack with her eyes lowered now moved through the palace halls with quiet confidence. She did not demand attention. She did not seek approval. She simply continued being the same person who had sat beside a lonely wolf beneath the moonlight and offered kindness when no one else would. Adrian Blackwood watched these changes with a feeling he had never expected to experience. Pride. Not the pride of a king seeing his mate accepted by others, but the pride of someone who understood the rare heart standing beside him. Emily had reminded him that a kingdom was not built only with rules and traditions. It was built with trust between those who lived within it. Weeks passed, and Adrian invited representatives from different territories to visit the palace. Many arrived expecting to meet a fragile Omega, who had gained a place beside the throne because of destiny. Instead, they found someone who listened before speaking, someone who remembered names, stories, and struggles that others often ignored. During a gathering in the royal gardens, a young wolf from a distant pack approached Emily with hesitation. He explained that his family had always felt forgotten, because they lived far from the center of the kingdom. Emily did not offer empty promises. She simply listened and told him that being unseen did not mean being unimportant. Adrian watched from a distance, realizing that this was the reason fate had brought her into his life. Emily did not change people by commanding them. She changed them by reminding them of their own value. Later that evening, Adrian and Emily walked through the quiet palace courtyard beneath the stars. "You realize you are changing everything," Adrian said. Emily smiled gently. "I am not changing everything. I am just trying to make sure people are not forgotten." Adrian looked toward the lights of the kingdom below. For years, he had believed the greatest responsibility of an alpha king was to protect his people from outside dangers. Now he understood that protection also meant creating a place where every person had the chance to be heard. The next day, the royal council gathered again, but this time the atmosphere was different. The doubts that once filled the room had become respect. The elders who had questioned Emily now recognized the strength behind her gentle nature. One of them finally admitted, "We spent years searching for strength in the wrong places." Emily accepted their words with humility. She did not need revenge against those who had misunderstood her. She only wanted a future where others would not feel as alone as she once had. As the moon rose over the Northern Territories, Adrian stood beside Emily and held her hand with quiet certainty. The kingdom had not found a Luna because she was powerful. It had found one because she understood the hearts of those who needed hope. And beneath the endless sky, The forgotten Omega became the light that guided an entire kingdom toward a new beginning. The first light of morning touched the northern territories with a sense of peace that had not been felt for many years. From the highest towers of the royal palace to the smallest villages beyond the mountains, people began to see their kingdom differently. The change did not come from a new law or a powerful command. It came from one simple truth that everyone had witnessed. A person who had once been ignored had shown the world what true strength looked like. Emily Carter stood beside Adrian Blackwood beneath the ancient Moonstone Tower, looking over the land that had once felt so far away from her. She remembered the days when she believed she would always remain unseen. She remembered walking through Silverpine Pack while others looked past her as if she did not matter. But now she understood something she never knew before. Being overlooked did not mean being without value. Sometimes the quietest hearts carried the greatest light. Adrian approached her, watching the same view she was watching. "Do you ever miss the life you had before all of this?" he asked softly. Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I miss the simplicity of it. But I do not miss feeling like I had to disappear to make others comfortable." Adrian smiled because he understood exactly what she meant. He had spent years hiding behind the image of an untouchable alpha king. He had believed that showing emotion made him less powerful. Emily had shown him the opposite. She had taught him that trust was not a weakness and compassion was not a flaw. Later that day, the kingdom gathered beneath the open sky for a ceremony of unity. It was not a celebration of power. It was a promise that every person, no matter their background or position, deserved to be valued. The people who once questioned Emily now stood with admiration. They did not see a rejected Omega anymore. They saw the woman who had reminded an entire kingdom that kindness could change the future. Adrian stepped forward and looked across the gathered crowd. "A crown does not create a leader," he said. "A title does not create honor. The way we treat those who have nothing to offer us reveals who we truly are." Emily listened quietly beside him, knowing those words were not only meant for the kingdom. They were also a reminder of the journey they had both taken. The Alpha King had discovered that he did not need to carry every burden alone. The Omega who thought she had no place in the world discovered that her heart had always been her greatest gift. As the ceremony ended, Emily returned to the forest where everything had begun. The old trees stood beneath the moonlight, just as they had on the night she found the mysterious wolf. She softly sang the melody that had connected two lonely souls and changed the course of destiny. Adrian stood beside her, no longer hidden by shadows or titles. He was simply the person she had chosen to trust from the beginning. The kingdom would remember many victories and many rulers, but this story would remain different. It was the story of an Omega who offered kindness when the world offered judgment, and an Alpha King who discovered that the strongest bond was not built through power but through understanding. Beneath the endless sky they stepped forward together, knowing that true strength was gentle, and love could heal what the world had forgotten.